September this year has been marked by some quite extraordinary weather. We've had an absolute blast of a late summer, which has been great. And through this big curved bed, the colours are evolving as those sedums develop. But this salvia at the end has been an absolute delight. It's looking fantastic in front of the foliage behind. But the bees really like it, which is amazing because it's such a long shape, but they're very persistent, working their way methodically across the whole plant. And through here, in this bed, there's a lot of repetition of colours. You've got the sedums dotting along, which interact with the various things with purple foliage. But there's also the paler colours, the whites and the yellows. This is little Cosmos Lemonade, which has been a lovely plant this year. Not very tall, but very, very pretty. It took a while to get going, but it's really hanging on well late into the season. Just got to keep the deadheading coming. And then if you turn your head right up, you can see these Tithonia, which are incredibly tall. In fact, next year I think they're so tall we're not going to bother with them because they're pretty dominant in the border. But all of the individual elements in this hotbed are lovely. The various dahlias, the sunflowers, the salvia confertifolia, which are those sort of tall, slender wands. And it all pulls together and forms this great mass, and obviously set off with the lumps of the foliage. But as you turn to the secret garden, it's quite a different picture, much sort of really underpinned throughout by these lovely asters. I suppose they're not asters anymore, but it's the aster munch. But again, the dahlias through here really give pops of colour rising above that little ocean. These enormous purple ones, I just do love them. But again, a new cosmos this year, again, a cosmos apricota, which is a slightly odd kind of dull shade, but it sits very well, even with the really big blousy flowers. And as well as the bigger flowers, you've got this sort of wall of foliage, which, when you're at a seated position, pretty much hides the view beyond. But in this garden, you don't go for very long before your eye is taken beyond a flower to through the gate and out into the landscape beyond. Because the view is so much of what Gasper Cottage is about. And those colours are just really starting to turn and evolve. But there's still the echoing of the shapes in the foreground and the background, which I really, really like. And this is just a kind of little view round this semicircular terrace. So along the house we've got the pots with the salvias and the various annuals, of which maybe now just that helichrysum is the dominant feature. The other ones have pretty much faded now. But as you turn, the whole terrace is taken over with little plants through all the paving, some of which are plants, some of which definitely weeds. But the overall effect is one of gentle colonisation, which I really like. But you've got that offset by the neatly clipped box, and then there's the sheer profusion in this bed beyond, and the way that you're faced with this, yes, a mix of plants, but they all blend with the landscape and blend with the verges, so the edges are lost. But in this little corner, I've got a whole selection of different Nicotianas. I think there's 3 different types of Nicotiana, and they really glow in the evenings because all of the pale flowers. Really, really happy with that area. So again, the same aster munch along the front of the house just sets the scene for a very romantic feel still. The rest of the garden is definitely tipping into autumn, but the front garden is clinging on to summer and that hazy, gauzy loveliness. So you've got quite a few dahlias, but one of the dominant plants at this season is it's a Persicaria. I think it might be rosea, which is it's a much more elegant plant than many of the persicarias. Some of them are, I'll grant you, a little on the thuggish end. This makes these very, very slender wands, and it's lovely. And down at the sort of the far end, I've got big masses of these very, very small flowered Symphotrichum, whatever we have to call them. And the way they are positioned on either side of the path really invites the eye to travel along and just revel in that late sunshine. Salvia amistad, you've got to love it. It's such a good plant. It goes on and on and on. And having walked down that little path and turning the corner, you're greeted by the birch grove, which, you know, at certain times of day, the light comes stealing in under the foliage and just catches all of these little individual items. What I'm really pleased to see is there's a little baby multi-stem tree in there, a Heptacodium myconoides, which I thought I had broken and it was all lost and gone. But it's really taken on a new lease of life. It's even flowered for me this year, which is delightful. But as always at Gasper Cottage, you come back to the pond. What a lovely way to end a day.